I walked a lot that morning, pacing the perimeter of the house, trying to burn off the white-hot rage that was consuming me. I could still hear the crinkling of the wrapping paper in my head. I had spent countless hours and a huge chunk of my savings selecting every item, perfectly hiding them in the deep walk-in hall closet. I even secured a heavy-duty brass padlock after last year's incident where my eldest, Leo, tried to sneak a peek at the tags. I thought I was airtight. That morning, I needed a sweater from that closet and found the padlock hanging open, slightly ajar, the shackle glinting under the hall light. The sight of it made my stomach drop. I pushed the door open just enough to see my two kids, Leo, 12, and Lily, 9, sitting on the plush carpet amidst a sea of shredded Santa paper. They weren't just looking. They were holding the presents, tearing open boxes, their faces glowing with a premature, completely ruined joy. The immediate, blood-curdling realization that the element of surprise, the magic I worked so hard to create, was utterly destroyed, made me snap. I didn't scream. I didn't even raise my voice. I just looked at the mess, looked at their wide, guilty eyes, and said in the calmest, most terrifying voice I could muster, "That's it. No Christmas." The silence was deafening. Lily started to cry, a quiet, broken sound, and Leo just stared at me, his face devoid of color. I said it again, clearly, slowly, so there could be no misunderstanding. You do not respect my effort, my boundaries, or my hard work. The consequence is simple. The holidays canceled. All of it. I walked out, leaving them there to clean up their mess, the silence ringing in my ears like a victory bell. I thought I was teaching them a crucial lesson about respecting hard-earned things. I was punishing them, yes, but I felt justified. The next morning I went back into the closet. I needed to move the remaining unwrapped presents, the massive gaming system, the high-end drone, the expensive custom sneakers, things they couldn't possibly carry on their own, to put them somewhere truly secure, maybe a storage unit, until I decided what to do with them. I pushed the door open and stopped dead. The closet was bare, empty, the door was locked again. The padlock fastened this time, and the spare key, which I thought they had used, was back on its hook above the doorframe. I checked it 3 times. The entire haul, every single wrapped and unwrapped present, had vanished. Stolen, but not by a stranger. Someone inside this house, my supposed safe haven, took them. What would you do in my place? Panic hit me like a physical blow, a massive shockwave of disbelief and cold sweat. This was not a few toys. This was thousands of dollars in gifts, and more importantly, it was a complete and total violation. I searched everywhere. The attic, the basement, under the beds, in the laundry hamper, inside the car trunk, running through every absurd scenario. Nothing. My spouse, Michael, walked in on my frantic search, casually sipping coffee. He claimed I must have moved them myself in a moment of stress. You said you were going to move them. Maybe you just forgot where you put them, honey. His calmness was infuriating, an unnatural placidity against my mounting panic. I'm paranoid, not delusional, and I certainly didn't hide a $900 gaming system from myself. I filed a police report, and they laughed, practically. A missing bag of Christmas gifts inside a locked home? File a claim, ma'am. I didn't file a claim. I started spying. I went to the nearest electronics store and purchased 2 micro-hidden cameras. I installed the first one in the hall outside the closet, angled directly at the door and the key hook. The second one went to the living room, hidden inside a fake houseplant, covering the main entrance and the staircase. I didn't trust anyone anymore. The kids were acting too innocent, their initial terror about the canceled holiday replaced by a strange, quiet dread. And Michael was acting too calm, too dismissive of the entire situation. The tension in the house is a physical thing, a constant pressure on my chest. I can't look at them without wondering. Who is it? I'm sleeping less than 2 hours a night, reviewing footage from the first few days, looking for the phantom key, the missing moment. And then, on a Tuesday afternoon recording, I saw it. It wasn't Michael going into the closet. It was a man I had never seen before, a stranger, but he wasn't sneaking around. He was being let in by Michael, who was smiling, holding a large, empty duffel bag. The image froze on my screen, the stranger's face a blur. But Michael's smile was painfully clear, a cheerful, complicit grin as he ushered the man out the front door, the empty duffel bag now bulging at the seams. My blood ran cold, instantly transforming my fear into a blinding certainty. It was him. Michael stole the presents. The kids, the canceled Christmas, the locked door, it was all a smokescreen. The realization was a punch to the gut, but also a strange relief, a perverse form of closure. I had a target for my rage. I stayed up all night, compiling the evidence, zooming in, cleaning up the footage. I saw Michael take the spare key off the hook, unlock the closet, and then a few minutes later, reappear with the massive bags, stacking them by the front door just before the stranger arrived. The camera captured the entire transaction, the clandestine handoff of the gifts, and then Michael counting a thick wad of cash the man gave him before shaking hands. He sold my kids Christmas. Not just to teach me a lesson or to spite me, but for cash. This wasn't just about the money. It was about the sickness, the rot that had suddenly appeared in my perfect family unit. I didn't confront him immediately. I needed more. I needed to understand the motive, the depth of this betrayal. I needed to know what he did with the money. I started checking our joint accounts, the savings, the investment portfolio, everything I could access. Nothing seemed out of place. The accounts were stable, maybe even slightly better than expected. This confused me. If he sold thousands of dollars worth of gifts, where was the influx of cash? Why wasn't it in the joint account? That's when the paranoia came back, thicker and stronger than before. If the money wasn't in the accounts, he must have a secret stash, a separate life. The tension became unbearable, a constant physical pressure in the house. I couldn't look at him without seeing the deceit, the cold calculation in his eyes. He acted as if nothing happened, making me coffee, asking about my day, offering to help the kids with their homework. The kids, by the way, were still crushed about the canceled Christmas, but they were no longer arguing about it. They were quiet, subdued, walking on eggshells, a deep, wounded look in their eyes. I felt terrible for them, but I couldn't apologize. Not yet. I had to know the whole truth. I started thinking about twist 2. What if this whole situation is a calculated distraction because I'm close to discovering a secret about my spouse that could end my marriage? Or even worse, what if this isn't the first time the gifts have disappeared? This scenario, which I had previously dismissed as pure anxiety, suddenly felt horrifyingly plausible. Michael had been acting strangely for months, taking odd calls in the garage, disappearing for long stretches on weekends, claiming to be working overtime on a huge project that never seemed to materialize. I dismissed it as stress, as his difficult job. Now I saw it as a pattern of deception. I decided to check the footage from the previous year, just for that moment, just to confirm my rising suspicion. The old hard drive was buried deep in a desk drawer. I pulled it out, dusted it off, and spent another agonizing night reviewing the previous December's footage, the generic scenes of our family life, of him coming home from work, of the kids playing. It took hours, but then, around the time I remembered the kids seeing the tags last year, there was a gap, a 5-hour gap in the recording. The power wasn't out. The other cameras in the house were fine. Only the hall camera, the one covering the closet, went dark. Someone had deliberately unplugged it. I knew then this was not a one-off. This was a pattern. This was systemic. He wasn't just a thief. He was covering up something far bigger, using the distraction of the stolen gifts to hide a deeper breach. The last piece of footage before the camera went dark was Michael looking directly at the lens, his expression unreadable, and then he reached up and the screen went black. I didn't sleep a wink. The image of Michael looking directly at the camera just before he unplugged it last year was burned into my mind. The casualness, the lack of surprise suggested he knew the camera was there, even a year ago. My immediate reaction was to smash the current cameras, to run, to scream, but I held it together. I needed to know what he was hiding. Why the money was not in the accounts? Why the massive lies? I decided to push for the immediate confrontation, but not about the theft. I needed to focus on the missing money and the bigger pattern. I found him in the kitchen, making breakfast, humming a tune. "Michael, we need to talk about the finances," I said, my voice dangerously even. He immediately went still, the spatula hovering over the eggs. "What about them? They're fine, honey." "Everything's fine." "No, they're not," I countered, pulling out the laptop, ready to show him the evidence of the missing presents. But I paused, focused on the money. I noticed a massive discrepancy. A large sum of cash is missing, and I see you making large payments to a company I don't recognize, called the Phoenix Group. This was a complete lie, a gamble, a desperate shot in the dark, but the mention of a specific, fake company name made him flinch violently, his face draining of all color. He dropped the spatula with a clatter. "How do you know that name?" he whispered, his eyes wide with genuine panic, a look I'd never seen before. That's when the first twist 1, hit me. What if the reason the gifts vanished wasn't theft, but something far more strange? Michael stumbled backward, his hands up in a gesture of surrender and fear, not guilt. It's not what you think. I didn't steal anything for myself. I swear it, he pleaded, his voice cracking. The presents are gone because I used them, or rather the money from selling them, to pay back a debt. Not a loan. Not a gambling debt. This is about Leo. He took a deep, shuddering breath. He confessed that Leo, our 12-year-old, had been involved in an online group, a dark web forum, where he accidentally triggered a phishing scam that stole a huge amount of money from a distant, wealthy relative's bank account. Michael had been quietly trying to fix it for months, using the Phoenix Group, a shady, unregulated security and repayment firm, to keep Leo out of legal trouble and protect the family's reputation. The price was astronomical. He had been slowly liquidating assets, but it wasn't enough. He sold the kids gifts as a last-ditch effort, planning to replace them gradually with less expensive versions. The theft of the gifts, the whole cancelled Christmas debacle, was him trying to cover up his own desperate act of protecting our son. The second twist, twist 2, the true conspiracy, came moments later. Before I could process the shock about Leo, Michael added, "And it's not the first time. Last year, when the camera went dark, I did the same thing. Lily found a credit card I hid and went on a massive online shopping spree, ringing up thousands of dollars of charges. I sold the gifts then too, to cover the debt before you found out. I've been trying to stop them, to manage their behavior, but they're too smart, too secretive. The betrayal wasn't him stealing for his own gain. It was him systematically dismantling our Christmas, our trust, and our family finances to shield the kids from the massive consequences of their own hidden, destructive behaviors."
He wasn't the thief, he was the desperate, lying, secret-keeping protector.
The reason the gifts vanished wasn't theft, but a terrifying cycle of calculated distraction because Michael had been living a double life, not as a cheater, but as a silent cleanup crew for our children's escalating, secretive transgressions. He was protecting a secret about the kids that could end not just our marriage, but our reputation too. I stared at him, the tears running down my face, now a mixture of horror, shame, and a terrible, devastating understanding. He wasn't a malicious thief. He was a terrified, deeply flawed father who chose to lie to me for months rather than admit our children had a serious, escalating problem with impulse control and secrecy. The irony was suffocating. I canceled Christmas to teach them a lesson about respecting boundaries, and in the process, my husband sacrificed the entire holiday to hide the far more profound consequences of their previous, more dangerous transgressions. The real crisis wasn't the missing presents. It was the fact that my children were living double lives, engaging in behaviors so secretive and damaging that their father was forced to become a criminal to protect them. The entire foundation of my perfect family unit crumbled in that moment. It wasn't about the money, though that was a massive problem too. It was about the years of deception, the constant surveillance, the total lack of communication that had allowed the rot to set in so deep. We spent the next hour in a painful, agonizing torrent of confession. He showed me the remaining receipts, the bizarre and complex payment schedules to the shadowy Phoenix Group, and the evidence of Leo's online activities. The money he got from selling the gifts was a drop in the bucket compared to the total debt, but it bought him a little time, a desperate breath before the next payment was due. I felt sickened, not by him, but by the situation, by the realization that I had been so blind, so focused on my own life and my own idea of discipline that I missed the warning signs from my children. We called a family meeting that afternoon. It was the hardest conversation of my life. Michael and I laid everything out for Leo and Lily, the canceled Christmas, the missing gifts, and the reason for it all. We didn't scream. We didn't punish. We spoke with a quiet, firm seriousness that seemed to terrify them more than any grounding could. Their secret lives, their separate worlds of online crime and hidden splurges, were exposed. They cried, not with the superficial regret of kids caught looking at presents, but with a deep, wrenching realization of the monumental consequences of their actions. The police weren't involved, but the Phoenix Group was a threat that loomed large. The canceled Christmas was the least of our worries. Our focus shifted entirely. Therapy, joint and individual, became mandatory. All devices were confiscated, access restricted, and every financial transaction was now monitored by both of us. Michael and I started seeing a marriage counselor, not to fix an affair, but to repair the trust that had been shattered by his calculated silence and my own blind spot regarding our children. The gifts never returned. The money was gone. We had a quiet, small, non-materialistic Christmas the following year, focusing on rebuilding trust and communication rather than presents. It was painful, subdued, and profoundly sad, but it was real. I came to Reddit asking at ITH for canceling Christmas after my kids found the presents early. I already know the answer is twisted, far darker than a few disappointed faces. I was the jerk for canceling Christmas for a minor infraction, while my husband was a bigger jerk for lying to me to cover up a major crisis caused by our kids. But the real villain wasn't either of us. It was the massive breach of trust within our home. I often think about the day I found the closet empty. I thought I was dealing with a simple theft. I was actually standing at the beginning of a long, painful road, confronting a generational problem of secrecy and digital dependence that almost ruined our family. The emotional reflection is simple. Sometimes the thing you think is your biggest problem is actually just a desperate distraction from the devastating truth lying just beneath the surface. I am still shaken, but I'm no longer blind. Now that you know the whole story, tell me, was Michael right to protect the kids like that? Comment below.